start out kind of with the basics, and that is, what's the mission of the church? What is the mission of the church?
Go out into the world.
To go out into the world?
Yep. Make disciples.
To make disciples?
Yep.
Okay. Other things. What else? To make disciples of who? Of who? To make disciples of Jesus, right? So even as trustees, those who are called to be stewards of the facilities of the church, that is the mission. That's the mission that you all are working towards do, is to help your local church go out and make new disciples, is a different way to do that, new disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, okay? That's your mission. So the ministry of the Board of Trustees is to help the local church fulfill that mission in the community and the world by supervising and maintaining all property belonging to the congregation so that the ministries of the congregation may be effective. So let's think about what some of your jobs are, and I've given you the PowerPoint if you want to take notes on it. But one of the things is that it's important for you all, for the Board of Trustees, to ensure that the congregation is being a good steward of what previous generations have given to them. The Board of Trustees cannot and should not interfere in the ministry program of the church, even if it means the building will be used and, in a sense, wear out. Okay? Ever experienced something different?
Mm-hmm.
Where the trustee said, nope, the youth cannot use that room. Usually it's the church parlor, because they might do what? Mess it up, dirty it up. But maybe they need to have a small group in there. And it's got, what does the parlor usually have? The most what? Most comfortable furniture. Okay? We need to teach the youth how to be good stewards, but the trustees don't need to be blocking what happens. But they need to be enabling it and teaching good stewardship of it. Okay? You're enabling the ministries of the church to happen. And your ministry is to provide a safe, clean, well-maintained environment in which people can come and work together to serve Christ and to make disciples of Jesus Christ. So I love those words: safe, clean, well-maintained. Okay. And one of the things I get real concerned about now, I think, is in a lot of our churches, the deferred maintenance is pretty significant. And so we've got to keep them well-maintained so that it doesn't become a bigger problem than it already is. The purpose of the church building is to be a tool that enables the local church to fulfill its mission and vision. To do what? Make new disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. God has allowed us to have this incredible tool, not just for our pleasure, but to help make disciples. So what are some of the ways that your buildings could be used, or maybe are used now, that aren't just worship?
Saturday mornings for AA group to meet
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay, Saturday morning AA groups, or NA groups, or that. How else are they used? Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts? They can come in. Other ways.
We have the walk, the skateboarders walk.
Right. And if you haven't seen that, there's a skateboarding park for people to come and for youth to come and experience that and hear about Jesus Christ as a part of that, but to get some exercise and some recreation. Other ways.
We have a monthly feeding for people, and we have a place where they can come and get it.
Okay, so is it a free dinner or
Yes.
a free dinner that people can come and get it, and that's held at the church?
We have the 30-hour famine that the youth do.
Okay.
From several different churches, not just ours. And we provide with that like 40 to 50% of Kieranet's food for the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the donations come in.
So, a beautiful ecumenical
Yeah.
movement that the youths have led here for a long time,
30
that then
years.
help provides for neighbors in need. Other ways your churches are used.
Warming centers?
Warming centers? Okay, sure. For our homeless brothers and sisters or others that need just a place to come get warm. How else could they be used? Just dream a little bit.
We have a county basketball league.
Okay, county basketball league. If you've got a gym, that's great. How else could they?
In time of emergency, it could be shelter.
Okay, and-
Whether for whatever purpose if you had to.
Sure. We have a hurricane, we have a huge ice storm, and you all still have power. It could be the place of shelter. Some churches, it's one week a month, it's shelter for our homeless brothers and sisters, during the winter, as they come to that church and stay there and are fed breakfast, and then they go to a day shelter somewhere else in that way. So that's a way that they can be used. Other ways they might be used.
ESL classes.
ESL classes, teaching English as a second language. What about tutoring?
Yeah.
What about teaching a skill? Maybe basic home skills that people might need, or parenting skills. I mean, where you could invite the community. But I think one of the things we need to see is that our buildings can be a tool. They can be a place where we can invite the community in order to get them inside the doors of a church, but also to share Christ's love with them and to teach them something that they might need. So I think there are lots of ways. If we look at it as a tool, not as something we just need to keep to ourselves. So here's how that committee should be organized. No more than 9 and no fewer than 3 members. Okay, can have anywhere between 3 and 9 members. This is my next favorite one. At least 1/3 lay women, at least 1/3 lay men, and the other third, whatever you want. But that includes good representation from the women and men. 2/3 must be professing members. What's interesting to me about the Board of Trustees is it's the only group that the Book of Discipline makes a distinction of how many of them have to be members. Now, some churches say everybody on the Board of Trustees has to be a member, but they don't have to be. That's your church's decision. Some churches say everybody on any committee has to be a member, and that's okay. But this one says at least 2/3 have to be professing members. And why do you think that's important?
And have the best interest of the church.
Have the best interest of the church. And you all hold the legal interest of the church and its facilities in your hands. So that's important. That the people who have committed to uphold the church by your prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness are those who are caring for that and taking care of that.
But it gives you the opportunity to have an attorney perhaps who's connected to the church in some way, but not a member of the church, to be on the board.
Okay, so if there's an attorney or somebody that's connected to the church, they can be on the board, and that kind of advice is wonderful, real helpful. Okay, they're divided into 3 classes with 1/3 elected every year. I won't ask you if your churches abide by that, but I do think it's important. And, those classes can succeed themselves, but to me, I think it's important to get new people on the Board of Trustees. One, it doesn't wear out all the people that are serving on trustees, but it also gives new ideas and new leadership, if you have that possibility. It also means that you'd have 2/3 are remaining that are seasoned and know what's been going on, and you bring in 1/3 new so that they can begin to learn and find out. And these members are nominated by Nominations and Leadership Development, and they're elected by the Charge Conference. Okay, the trustees are the only group, if maybe one of your trustees moves or chooses not to be on the trustees, you have to have a Charge Conference to elect a new one. Why would that be? Why would you need a charge conference to elect a new one?
Because they're actually acting as an officer of the corporation.
They're acting, if you're incorporated, they're acting as an officer, or if you're not incorporated, they're acting as the legal representatives of the church. So that's the only group that you have to have a charge conference for, to replace a member of your trustees. They must be of legal age as determined by law. That's why I could only visit the trustees that day, not be on it. And the appointed pastor is a member of the Board of Trustees, but they only have vote if they're elected as a member of the Board of Trustees, of that 3 to 9. Most churches don't do that. They do not elect the pastor to be one of the members. So the pastor is there, the pastor is providing guidance, but does not have vote unless the charge conference has elected the pastor to be one of the 3 to 9 trustees. Does that make sense? The church treasurer can serve on the board of trustees, but they don't have vote. They have voice but no vote. And the member of the board of trustees, every year, should happen in January, the pastor should call together the board of trustees, and they're gonna elect their own chair, their own vice chair, and their own secretary. Every year. Now, they may let somebody continue to be the chair, but you've gotta do it every year, and have that in your minutes in order that we have proper accountability for the legal matters. So that's one of the pastor's responsibilities. Trustees have a meeting, first meeting in January. They get together and they elect their officers. They're not elected by or nominated by the nominations committee. And they should meet at least quarterly. I found that it depends. Sometimes if they meet quarterly, they can be what? Long meetings. The board of trustees are probably some of the longest meetings I've ever attended as a pastor. So maybe you need to meet every 2 months, and it would be a shorter meeting and to get things done and hold each other accountable. Maybe you don't need to do that, but just, nobody does really well if it's a 4-hour meeting. So if you need to, meet more often. Yes?
If you meet, say, we meet every month, but if we meet quarterly and something comes up that needs to be done, is it acceptable for us to send out an email and ask them to vote by email?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to know I did the right thing there.
Good. Yeah, and if you want to make that super official, you can, at your church council meeting, say, we're going to meet quarterly, but if things come up, we're going to do email votes, and I'll provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and that these days, that helps our conference calls, but emails work really well. Okay, so here are, it's not going for a second. Here are your responsibilities. Oversee, maintain, supervise all local church property, which includes conducting an annual inspection and inventory of all church property, including the parsonage. So at one of those meetings, you need to walk through the property, maybe at every meeting, walk through the property, see what needs to be done, and then once a year, you with the chair of the staff parish committee or pastor parish committee, and if you have a parsonage committee with the parsonage committee, go over to the parsonage, please give them some notice, and you walk through to see what needs to be done there. Does that make sense? And if there are any problems with pastors not letting you in, then you call the district superintendent.
We're trying to do it a little different. We assign each member an area.
And that
they
would be
walk through
every time?
Yeah.
That's great. Assign every member an area to keep up with. That would be great. Divide and conquer. It's a super way to do it. You're going to report annually to the charge conference on the state of the church's property, equipment, investments, and resources. Okay, what does that look like when you report? Those of you that have done that before. There's a charge conference report that you fill out where you talk about, where are the deeds kept? You talk about what investments do they have and how much did they make? You talk about, what's the state of the church property? You talk about what kind of insurance, and that's done yearly, and it's turned in at charge conference. So there's an official report that you fill out in order to do that. You also receive and administer all gifts made to the congregation. You make sure all trust funds of the congregation are invested properly, and you develop guidelines for receiving and managing wills, trusts, bequests, and other investments given to the church. So one of your long-term members passes away, and in their will, they give you a piece of property. Who's responsible for that piece of property? The trustees are. It comes to the hands of the trustees to decide what to do with it. Are they going to keep it? Are they going to sell it and use the money for mission and ministry? What are you going to do with that? So, people can leave sums of money, they can leave property, they can leave other gifts. It's also something that you can make some decisions about. We had a church in this district, and a wonderfully incredible gentleman wanted to leave the church a cut glass museum that he had amassed throughout his lifetime, and so they were going to leave that worth probably $500,000. Okay, but the stipulation was they had to keep that cut glass museum open and running in order to receive it. The trustees had to have a lot of discussion. What a gift! What generosity! But is the mission of the church to keep open a cut glass museum? And they struggled with that, and they talked about it and thought about it, and then finally made a decision. But that's one of the things that you all have to think about. You don't have to receive every gift that's given to you. If it doesn't fit with our purposes, those kind of things. One of the things that people tend to like to give trustees are cemetery plots. Now, this may be more in the city, but they'll give and that's difficult for trustees, because cemetery plots don't turn over a lot.
I've got one if anybody wants one.
What? You've got one if anybody wants one. See, we all have some. So one of the things I've recommended to trustees is give them to somebody. Don't try to make money on it. Just somebody that needs a cemetery plot. Let's give it to them and let them use it. But that's one of the things. Okay, you are to ensure that the articles of incorporation of the congregation are kept up to date if applicable. How many of your churches are incorporated? Okay. It's important that you keep the minutes of the corporation. It is vitally important. I think for a long time, we in the United Methodist Church thought, we will incorporate so we can keep people from being at risk, and then we do nothing else with it. And if something happens, a lawyer's going to take a look at that, and it's over with. So you've got to keep a corporate minutes book, and it can be the same charge conference meeting, but you've got to keep that up and say, this is when the trustees have met, and this is what we did, and that's very important. I did bring with me, over there, if your church has ever thought about incorporating, I did bring with me some incorporation guidebooks. That if you want to take one of these, you're welcome to it. It kind of walks you through what you need in order to incorporate. And then if you want to incorporate, then you take your articles of incorporation, and we let our conference chancellor, our conference lawyer, take a look at them, and then they give you the approval to do that. But if anybody needs these, I brought those with me. You also submit to the Committee on Finance and the annual budget requests for insurance, property maintenance improvements, and new property purchases. So you're going to the Finance Committee to say, this is what we want to do, and getting their approval on doing that. And you're accountable to the charge conference and to the church council. So when the church council meets, you make a report on what you've been doing, and you make a report at charge conference as well. So they hold you accountable to that. And if they tell you to do something, then you've got to do it. Okay, so let's talk about property, because in the Methodist Church, it's a little bit different than in other places. The trustees hold the title to all church property in behalf of the United Methodist Church. We commonly call that the trust clause. That means that you hold the property to your local church in trust to the United Methodist Church. And if your church were to close, then that property would come back to the United Methodist Church, because the people that came before you wanted it to be a Methodist or a United Methodist Church property. And that's true with every church property that we have. And it's been true since the time of John Wesley. That's how he set it up. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And you can purchase, you can mortgage property, but it requires some permissions, okay? You can't just decide to go buy the lot next door and vote on it as trustees and take it to the church council and you're done. Because it's held in trust, it needs the pastor, the district superintendent, and we have a district board of church location and building that all need to sign off on that, plus a charge conference in order to make any purchases or to make any sales. Yes?
Does that include vehicles?
Does not include vehicles.
Okay.
And the thing that the district church board and location, they just want to kind of walk with you to make sure it's a good purchase or it's a good sale, or, you know, that it makes sense. And so they're gonna just ask to talk to you. The discipline has specific instructions for this, so my last, point is, when in doubt, check the discipline, okay? If you don't have one, your pastor has one, I hope. So, but in the, 2500s is where they have all the property matters. Okay, so here are some things I think you need to know as trustees. The first is, where are the deeds to all the property? Do you have a safety deposit box? And do you have the keys to that? Are there deeds that have been registered at, you know, in the courthouse, and can you find them, and, you know, can you get a copy of them? We have some churches here in the Western North Carolina that we can't find a deed for. It may have burned when something burned or something, but we don't have deeds for it. Now, if you want to sell something or do something, that's a problem. So the trustees need to know where they are. Where are the deeds for all the property? Also, it would be helpful to know in those deeds, are there reversion clauses? A reversion clause would mean if this ceases to be a United Methodist Church, it goes back to these heirs. And that's important for the trustees to know. Where is the safe sanctuary policy adopted by the Charge Conference, and is it posted and enforced? Okay, safe sanctuary policy is the policy we use in the United Methodist Church to keep us safe, to keep children, youth, and vulnerable adults safe. And every church should have one. Trustees should know where it is and should make sure it's being enforced. And some of those safe sanctuary policies will say, we will have yearly training on CPR. Well, if you don't have yearly training on CPR, is it being enforced? No. And a lawyer is going to come to you and say, well, it's good that you have this, but you weren't enforcing it, so, oh well. And we'll have a better case if something tragic happens. Okay? So it's real important that you're a part of that group that makes sure that those are enforced. Are there building use policies that have been approved by the Charge Conference? Oftentimes we don't do a real good job of passing things down. So is there a policy for weddings? Is there a policy for a group using the building? And what are they? And, you know, do you keep them in a notebook? But where are they, and what do they say? And then are you reviewing the insurance policies annually? Very, very important. The United Methodist Church does have minimum standards for insurance policies, okay? And those are at the back of your trustees report, your annual trustees report. They're also on our conference website, so that they'll tell you the minimum standards of what you need. And I just might have some. I thought I had made some copies, and here they are. Now, I know with small churches, some of these seem quite large. And so, you know, please discuss it with your insurance agencies, but also, you know, discuss it with your district superintendents as you choose not to abide by these. Because unfortunately, we live in a very litigious society. And people like to sue, so it's really important that you've got the proper amount of insurance in order to protect yourselves.
Do most churches use an insurance company that is based as being mainly insurers and churches? I know
Some, yeah, so some do. There are three ones that I know about. There's Church Mutual,
Yeah.
and that's the one that our conference uses, and if you use them, you get a discount on what you do. There's Brotherhood Mutual. It operates a lot like Church Mutual, so that's an insurance company. And then there's United Methodist Insurance, and that's, they've kind of reorganized, but that's another group. It is helpful if the insurance company knows about churches. But one of the things that we also know is true is in your congregation, there might be a State Farm representative or that type of thing, and you want to choose to give them the business, and that's perfectly okay. We do not dictate who you do that with. But those three, Church Mutual, Brotherhood Mutual, and United Methodist Insurance, UMI, are three that predominantly work with churches. And one of the things that we have with Church Mutual is a workers' compensation policy. And that you can join in on that. It's significant savings with the conference. You know, it used to be, we thought, if you only had a pastor, you didn't need workers' compensation. But if there are other people volunteering regularly, your pianist or others, you need workers' compensation. And so you can do that through the conference or get the policy yourselves. But
And if you have anybody doing any work on the church, you
yes,
make sure they have compensation.
yes, you do. You make sure they right. Questions about insurance? Yes.
Does anybody else having, right now, currently, we just renewed our insurance, but we're having issues the last couple of years with the insurance company coming down on the church in reference to candles.
Oh, okay.
And we've been told, that, I guess by the book, I guess you could say, that we have to have real candles, we can't use an electric, candle in place of it.
No LEDs.
No LEDs.
And that's what the insurance company is?
Yeah, that's something that, yeah.
Why, they
Yeah,
want
they
your
want us
church
to
to burn
eliminate
down?
open flame within the church.
Oh, they want you to eliminate.
Right.
Yes.
So they'd rather you not use real candles, but they'd rather you use LEDs.
Right, right.
Yeah. Candles have been fire hazards in churches. I think they're gonna still have to let us use some candles, but I understand.
Yeah. Well, they're basically this year, they've told us that right now we've been kind of stable the last couple of years with our insurance, the bill, but they told us this is the last year they're gonna cut us slack, that, next year, our insurance is gonna go way up
Wow.
because of the candles.
So, might be time to talk to another insurance company too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that.
But you
Yeah.
think about it, even the acolytes couldn't bring the flame.
Mhm.
I mean, this is really steepening a lot of sacred character here.
Yeah, let them walk up and turn on the button.
Yeah, that'd be fun, but, yeah. Is it Brotherhood or Church Mutual or UMI, United Methodist?
It's one of the churches, it's like Southern, ministry, it's a ministry,
It's
it's a
two
church.
churches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have the info on where you mentioned?
It's on our website, and I can get it to you,
Okay.
so I'll give you my,
Yeah.
email address. Yeah, I think, I mean, I know it's dangerous, but I think we need to have real light in our churches, so.
Well, we use gas lights.
Right, okay.
There's three candles up front that are gas powered,
And they just stay lit,
and they just stay lit.
okay,
But they're only on when you're there.
That's right.
right, yeah.
Insurance.
One on the directors and officers, $1 million, insurance. It's getting pretty hard to find an insurance company that will even insure, officers.
Mhm.
Because I know a long time ago, on the homeowners association, it was almost impossible to find insurance companies that will insure $1 million.
Sure, that's why the three that I've mentioned, they will do D&O coverage, and so, what that does is protect your church council, it protects you all as trustees, in order that there's some coverage for you all too.
And we can, get that insured through, conference.
Well, we can tell you the companies, yeah, that you could use. Other questions? Now, I will say, one of the things that I do in the conference is, sadly, get to work with sometimes when there's misconduct. And, so, that having the, sexual misconduct liability insurance is incredibly important. And a lot of insurance companies have separated that out as an additional policy. It used to be kind of all a part of our general policies, but just make sure that you have it. We dealt with a church that only had $300,000 in that coverage, and had some misconduct that was devastating. And so, you know, they were in trouble. It was hard, because they didn't have enough.
I'm sorry, I didn't read your name.
Amy Coles, and I probably didn't tell it to you, so, Amy Coles, and I work as the assistant to the bishop in Huntersville.
Last name again?
Coles, Coles. And I'll give you my email address while you're doing that. It's Coles at WNCCUMC.org.
That's all one?
All one thing.
WNCC.
Yeah, WNCCUMC.org. Western North Carolina Conference, United Methodist Church.org.
And what did you say you are?
I'm the assistant to the bishop. Sadly, I had to move from the Smoky Mountain District to Huntersville, and that was a sad day in my life.
Yeah, I thought you were.
Yeah, I was the
the
district superintendent of the
Yeah.
for.
Oh, Huntersville's not that bad.
Huntersville's beautiful, but it's not the mountains.
No, I know, I know.
But I'm glad to answer any of your questions. One of the things that I work with is closed church properties and insurance, so if I don't know the answer, I'm glad to help you find it out, more than happy to.
As a small church, we are to employ each of these things anyway?
Yes. To the best of your ability. Now, you know, some, you can call me, you can call our treasurer, Mark King, when you meet with the insurance company, if it's totally unreasonable to talk about, you know, whether as a very small church, you could relax any of these, but these are the best ones to have, according to our general counsel on finance and administration. All right, other questions that you have? Here are a couple good resources. Discipleship Ministries is where I got the job description that I passed out to you. GCFNA.org is our overall umbrella organization in the United Methodist Church for finance and things. They have a wealth of resources to help you, and so that's a great one to be able to go to. And then if you haven't gotten a copy from Cokesbury, the guidelines for leading your congregation trustees would be a good booklet to have.
Where can you?
You can order that through Cokesbury, and sometimes they even have them on Amazon. So, but you can get it through Cokesbury. But that's a good book to just keep around in case you need it.
Say that again, Cokesbury?
Cokesbury? Okay, so Cokesbury is the United Methodist, it used to be our bookstore, but we don't have any like bricks and mortar bookstores, but we have it's a mail order.
Okay.
So it's COKESBURY.
Very good.
.com. This is your Methodist trivia for the day. It's a combination of Thomas Coke and Francis Asbury, who were the first two bishops of the Methodist Church that came to America. So put it together. What?
You're a history teacher.
Other questions or things you've run into as trustees?
How quick or timely is we've got a parcel that could be available next to the church, but Lord only knows when. How quickly can you go through that process of getting district superintendent and the sign-offs?
Okay, so there's a parcel of property next to the church that could be available at some time.
Yeah.
Soon, maybe, okay? I would go ahead and start that process now. I would talk to your pastor and district superintendent and say, when and if this parcel of property becomes available, you know, would you give approval to?
Right.
And then I would call the District Board of Church Location and Building, which your district superintendent can do, and have them come out, look at it. Sometimes just a couple members will come out and get their permission. And then when it becomes available, all you have to do is, you could even have a charge conference to say when it becomes available. So you can do a lot
Probably wouldn't wanna make that public, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
Same time, yeah.
You could begin some of the things that
You can do everything short of the charge conference.
Charge conference,
and
yes.
That way, yeah, because you know, you just don't want it to come on the market and off the market before you can actually make an offer on it before
Right.
somebody else is making an offer.
And you can write that into your contract as part of the due diligence, that you have to have approval of your charge conference, so that you have a way out if you decided to go under contract
Yeah.
with it. Other things, questions?
Always make sure that if you say yes to being chairman, that there's somebody on that board that's been chairman before, who will agree to be your co-chairman.
Okay, good thing. If you agree to be the chairperson, it's good to have somebody else that's been the chair before. You can either consult or be a co.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't know what I was getting into, but we are blessed with an extremely wonderful custodian. And I am blessed with a very good co-chair who has been chairman before. And there's about five, and I'm the first woman in a long time. There's about 5 men that I know that've been chairman.
Okay.
And trust me, they get phone calls and emails.
That's the good thing about the body of Christ.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And that's one thing, oftentimes the trustees do supervise the custodian, or that type of thing. What's best if you're gonna do that is that you go to the staff parish relations committee or pastor parish and just tell them to give you permission to do that.
He just does it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's already been.
It's already been done.
It's
So,
all taken care of.
You're responsible for any contracts the church enters into it. So if you have a lawn care contract, you all need to be the one that signs that and supervises it. If there's a cleaning contract for your church, you need to be the one that signs that and supervises it.
One more question.
Yes.
Okay, if you've got only 6 trustees on your, board, okay, the chairman shouldn't vote unless it's a break of tie.
Typically, but yeah, typically, because if you have 6, one is the chairperson, so you won't have a tie.
That's true.
So 5 of them can vote, and then if there's a,
There would be.
there would be a tie. So the chair shouldn't vote.
No, they can vote. I mean, so if you feel strongly about something, you can vote, and then you'll have to just work it out.
Take it out in the parking lot and work it out.
Yeah, well, that's not fun. Don't take the trustees meetings out in the parking lot. Other questions? Does it feel like a doable task? No.
It sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, but what my recommendation would be to just do one thing at a time. Don't have to do it all. You eat, the old saying of you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So just accomplish one thing, and then if you'll keep a notebook or keep files on your computer that you can pass on to the next chair or the next group, then there's a good continuity. So if you all, find out where the deeds are and know where that is, just be sure you pass it along to. Okay, so, just do it one thing at a time, but there is a lot of things to make sure happen. And I think the insurance is one of the most important, plus the maintenance of the building, to not let it get out of hand. Yes,
Okay, on that note right there for maintenance and whatever,
yes.
everybody's concept of maintenance and upkeep is different. Is there a minimum set of standards? Since the conference basically owns all the property, okay, is there a minimum set of standards or somebody that maintains that or inspects it?
So what I would say is, we're not gonna dictate that top down, but I think safe and clean, and the best is to be a good steward of it. So how can you maintain something effectively? If there's water intrusion in the basement of the church, which is gonna produce mold, that needs to be handled if at all possible.
Teach them how to swim.
But then there's mold, and mold can be a big mess for people. So, and that's one of the things that I had an incredible trustees chair in the last church I served. And one of the things that he did was he took everything in our building, and this was a relatively small church, and he decided about how long it would last, and we funded a maintenance, we called it our long-term maintenance fund. We funded it every month from the budget. So when the roof needed repaired, we had that money that we could repair the roof. Or when we needed to buy a new refrigerator, for the church kitchen. We had that money. But it was a good exercise in discipline, in stewardship for the church, to just fund it every month out of the budget, so that we had that money available. Lots of times what churches do is they have a special drive. You know, okay, we need to fix the air conditioning unit. How many of you will give to that? And that's one way to handle it, but this was a wonderful way that we could be assured that we'd have the money that we needed to do the repairs. Yes?
Now, is there an arm of the conference that comes and helps churches decide their maintenance priorities and?
So we do have, it's not an arm of it is an arm of the conference. Wesley Community Development, which is who we use for our property management, and also it wants to help churches be the best. They would be glad to come out and take a look at it and give you some suggestions.
Now, do they do like long-term, or is it like yearly?
Well, you could talk to them. They probably would, they'd probably charge you if you did it on an ongoing, but if you wanted to come out and just take a look and help you with that,
Okay,
they would
and
be more than willing.
they can help to like point out some
Point out
potential
things, yes.
expensive things coming up.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that they're really good at is saying, here's your church building, here's your property, here might be some additional ways that you could make income with your church property or with something. Maybe you could have, co-working space in the basement or something. They're very creative in that way.
What did you say the name of it was again?
Wesley Community Development.
Okay.
And if you look on our the Western North Carolina website, they are right there.
Okay.
They're wonderful. I know they're working with several churches in this district already. Any other questions? Well, thanks. Please don't hesitate.
Thank you.
To reach out to us. We're glad to help, and provide you with anything we can. I wish I had $1 million for every church. That would be really nice, but we'll help you, in any way possible as we have that. So I hope yes.
One other thing, you give them the website is just the.
It's WNCC UMC.
Okay.
Yes. Any others? All right, well, have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving your afternoon.